gentlemen. It's indeed a pleasure and a privilege for us as part of the British High Commission network in India to be part of Huddle. We've been obviously operating out of Karnataka as where we have our Deputy High Commission. Our High Commissions are in Delhi, Bombay, Calcutta, major metros, Bangalore, Chennai. But as our responsibility roles, we look after Kerala. So a great part of our job here as the British High Commission network in India is to ensure that the bilateral trade is flying high. We've just signed the free trade agreement, which has been in the news a lot. And our role represents British companies internationalizing in India and Indian companies who are globally minded setting up in the UK. It's a great story. All of us know that the British presence in India in the shape of the Tesco's, the Marks and Spencer's, the Rolls-Royces, and the Naismiths is a well-known factor. However, what's really important as well is to recognize that India has become a huge opportunity for us in the UK because primarily companies in the technology sector, companies in the life sciences sector, and across a spectrum of what we call our industrial strategy is basically the kind of companies that India today is growing at and looking nationally. So let me just come to the basics here. Why government? What's in it for government? Why would government be proactively working with companies across geographies? We have posts from Peru to Pune. We have over 220 British embassies, high commissions across the world. And the fundamental for us as government is that bringing companies which are international to UK supports us in technology, innovation, but most predominantly brings high-tech jobs to the UK. As government, this means it brings down the price, it creates a really competitive environment for the UK, and probably, I think in government speak, it increases the entrepreneurial pool, it increases the innovation quotient of the UK, and most importantly, keeps us as an open, easy-to-do business market. I don't think there's any surprises here on this slide. I just wanted to sort of re-emphasize the strong track record that the UK has in welcoming FDI. We've been attracting sort of a greater stock of FDI than most of our partners across the region. And the reason we do this, I think in the effective way that we do, is predominantly because of the legacy that we have in science, innovation, and technology. Let me just sort of touch a little bit on, for a globally minded company, what would be the most important key drivers for you to consider a global market like the UK? It has to be the universals, isn't it? It has to be what is important to you, what is important to your company at the time, and most importantly, that you have a product which is global and you're looking to grow the market. But I also feel it's really important to sort of recognize that the ease of doing business in most regions and in most companies is probably a key driver, right? You would like to go to an economy where there's a cluster which you recognize, and most importantly, there is a welcoming ecosystem. I think why do we as government also work so sort of in a focused manner when it comes for ease of doing business? The factor here for me, most importantly, is why is it easy for a company like yours to come and set up here? I'd just like to sort of highlight a few of the most important factors for me if I was a company looking at the UK. We've got a really good base here when we talk about taxation. We've got an incredible competitive environment for you to take advantage of. There's some, stats there which I'd like you to sort of take cognizant of for a bit. But as highly skilled workforce, I think, is one of the most important foundations of any international business. And the UK has a strong international dynamic economy. The UK holds a great recognition when it comes to higher education. Business have all sorts of transferable critical thinking skills that drive innovation and business growth. We know that it's got a very flexible labor sort of environment, which is very right for investors to make the most of the rich UK talent available, whilst accommodating immigration rules which attract some of the best talent for us globally. I'm not going to touch on too much of the detail on immigration, but I think it suffices to say that talent is probably one of the biggest key drivers for any company looking to grow and set up in a new geography. Some of the sectors that we're very proud of, which have a huge bearing on, I would say, tomorrow's sectors, is the automotive and manufacturing technology sectors. I mean, some of the heat maps here are quite indicative of the clusters that we have. I'm also going to sort of give you some of the heat maps of the various other sectors, which is health tech, healthcare and pharma, ICT technology, and the finance heat map. But I think it's important to just sort of show you where the largest clusters are, which is around the Midlands, where we have some of the greatest Tata's installations outside of India, which is in the UK. Health and pharma, hugely important. It's driving R&D and growth. We know that Piramal has operations in the north of England, Biocon from Bangalore, the entire Serum India group did some extraordinary work during COVID times. Most of them have sort of operated around these big clusters here in the UK. ICT, technology and finance heat maps tell you exactly where our clusters in the UK sit. London and the southeast, plus clusters of AI in Cambridge, media in Manchester, and robotics in Bristol. Finance, obviously, London is a global financial center. Also, fintech is found in Belfast, and kind of the asset management piece sits around Edinburgh. But this is probably one of the most important sectors for us in the India-UK corridor. For the last 2 decades that I've been doing this job, I've had the privilege of working with some of the most exciting and dynamic Indian technology companies who found success in the UK. And I just want to spend an extra minute talking about technology, because we as the government, I mean, we are an excellent client. We spend close to 17 to 18 billion pounds a year on our own technology. Many of the Indian companies have already grabbed many of our public sector accounts. We have ITC Infotech running our passports. We have Mastech running our transport here in Kerala. We have Experion, who works for Transport for London. We have the NHS. We have supply chain, the TVS group. All of these major Indian companies have found success in the UK working alongside government as well. I think this is a really important sort of explanation about how government works. What we do is we have the industrial strategy. The sectors here are identified. And companies in the UK will be really benefiting from these sectors, clearly because they belong to our new modern industrial strategy, which is called the Invest 2035. This is the UK government's 10-year plan to deliver certainty and stability that we need to invest in the high growth sectors that will drive our growth mission. I just want to pause here a bit because, as government, the strategy will focus on tackling barriers to growth. And this is really important as a globally minded company like yourself, because if you're coming to the UK and you're in one of these potentially thriving, high driving sectors and places, you're creating the right conditions that we need as government, and you'll find an increased investment, a high quality set of jobs being offered, and you'll be ensured sort of a tangible impact that we would like to see on our communities right across the UK. These 8, what we call growth driving sectors, have a really great potential for economic expansion, and we as government make sure that we produce for each sector. Part of our commitment is to help you thrive if you're in any of these sectors. And by thriving, I mean funding and tax reliefs to create certainty and drive growth, as well as funding for vital R&D sort of investment, building talent and resilience. I think it's also important that I mention the investment zones. We have 8 investment zones, and these are really important because they provide a really huge range of support for services, from funding and mentoring to networking opportunities and infrastructure development. The zones are in priority sectors. You know, they're the green industries, the digital technologies, all the usual suspects, life sciences, creative industries, and advanced manufacturing. But what's really important that, you know, we've set a target by which we've got to grow resource, capital, funding, and tax incentives, and we warmly welcome companies like yours whom we can support and grow in the UK. The last point I will make about government initiatives and strategies is, you know, we've launched an AI growth zones, which are part of our AI opportunities. So it's sort of, you know, the bigger scheme of the AI action plan, and we are aiming to expedite planning permissions, enhance access to energy infrastructure, attract private investment for building data centers and AI-related facilities. So the first confirmed AI growth zone is in Oxfordshire, with a bidding for opening for other regions across the UK. So if you're considering anything in AI, please do consider these sort of government initiatives. I'll just go back to my previous slide, and this is the one that I wanted to sort of talk a little bit about, which is why work with us? You know, what is so important about working with DBT, and what is DBT? Department for Business and Trade is part of the UK government. We're the UK government's department which supports globally minded companies to internationalize. We support companies like yours by attending events like this, where we meet companies like yours, able to allay any concerns and support that you may require. We all sit in the British embassies and British High Commissions across the world. So this is where you'll find us. Why do we endorse working with DBT? Not because we're free, not because we're bespoke, and not because we are confidential, but primarily because we work with this incredible network of UK advisors, UK support system, to which you will have privy to when we are supporting you. So, you know, if you're doing anything UK-centric, if you're considering the UK, please do contact the British High Commission. We don't only do visas, and we don't only do political and economic, but there are a bunch of us who do bilateral trade. And our role is to support companies like yours to set up and grow in the UK. It's my privilege as well to introduce my 3 colleagues who are sitting in the audience today. We have Sijoy Thomas, who looks after FDI from Kerala to the UK. He will be your point of contact. We have Mr. Jacob here. He's my colleague who looks after the fintech sector for British companies looking to internationalize into India. So sits with him a band of British companies who are looking for partners, maybe like yourselves. I also have Kichu here, my colleague who looks after the advanced engineering sector. Kichu's role is to foster the corridor between India and UK on advanced engineering and manufacturing. He's just taken an incredible delegation of Indian companies to the UK, which we do very often to host and basically give you an experience of the UK. The last slide, this is what we call the Expand Your Business in the UK. I just want to touch on this briefly because it's a digital portal that we've just launched. This is for companies who in the room might be absolutely sure that you want to set up in the UK. You know where you want to go, and you don't need to work very closely with the Department of Business and Trade or the High Commission. You're quite, you know, at liberty to go onto our digital portal, which is a really wonderful self-service portal. It's got a great QR code. You can pick that up, look through it. But more importantly, I would advise you to just have a look at this portal because it gives you a really wonderful overview of the UK, our sector propositions, etc. And then once you've sort of studied the portal, if you wish, you can contact any one of our colleagues here in the audience. We will share our cards with you when the session's over. But it just gives you sort of, opportunity to kind of learn a little bit more about the UK's sector sort of strengths. I would probably stop here, but just to sort of reiterate the fact that we are government, we're here to support you, and if there is just a couple of things that I would like you to take away from this conversation, not least my colleagues here, but most importantly for me, is that we are here to support you. We are the UK government. Our role is just to ensure that companies like yours have a point of contact when it comes to the UK. I'll touch very lightly on performance. We have over 1,555 projects, from the region have landed over the last 20 years. All right. So the South Asia market is really a very high producing market when it comes to foreign direct investment from this part of the world to the UK. India is the second largest source of FDI after the USA to the UK. Last year itself, we had about 108 projects. When I say that's 108 companies, maybe about 70 companies, and I would say new ones. The rest have been reinvesting in the UK. We produced from this region over 7,533 jobs. We still lead as far in Europe when it comes to FDI, project value and stock, ahead of Germany and France. And I would just leave you with a couple of points. If there's anything I'd like you to take away from this session, is just top reasons to consider the UK. For me, the first one is global reach. It's the number one in Europe for new FDI. Number two is innovation. Third, globally for unicorns. Fifth, the most attractive, innovative economy. Education would be my third key driver if I was a company like yours considering the globe. 8 of the top 50 global universities reside in the UK. We have trade agreements with 70 countries. Really important for you to consider when you set up in the UK, which are the countries that from a UK base you can trade with internationally. The fifth point is CEO rankings. I take this is quite a key driver for me. It's the second most important global investment destination. As far as a comprehensive business environment goes, 6th largest economy, simply easy to set up businesses. Company registration in 24 hours is easily done. On our portal, it's £50. We are the lowest G7 when it comes to corporate tax rate. Patent boxes are really important. We have some brilliant R&D tax credits. We have a strong financial systems and capital markets. And I think the last and most key one is talent and skills, highly diverse skilled workforce, flexible labor laws, government-backed training programs, Skills England, apprenticeships, etc., boot camps, brilliant. And I think the other one is the sectorial strengths and clusters, which I sort of alluded to a little bit with automotive, healthcare, ICT, finance, future industries, the industrial strategies, which I'd like you to sort of just remember our 8 sectors of clean energy, creative industries, financial services, digital and tech, professional services, defense, life sciences, and advanced manufacturing. Remember, not so important, but the investment zones and the AI growth zones for your priority sectors. The last and least, but not last, is the most important, which is DBT's support. You have dedicated support here in the room. You have account managers, sector specialists, and a lot of people who would look after you set up and grow in the UK. Our services include search policies, we include policy advice, and regional support as well. So I will basically pause here. I think we'll be available to answer questions after the session's over. But just one big takeaway, the UK offers a stable, innovative, and globally connected environment for investors like yourself. backed very strongly by government support, competitive tax incentives, world-class talent, and sectorial opportunities. I think I've repeated myself 3 times there on the key takeaways. And thank you very much to my audience. It's been a privilege to come here and speak to you on behalf of the UK government. Thank you. It's in the criteria for your student visa applications. The third point is with regards to students not being able to complete courses and then moving on to local jobs, which is now, again, as you know, sort of pretty much the highlight of the present government. We're looking really keenly at courses which will have, students which will be able to have a full completion of courses. And the very last point you brought up was what we are trying to do is that India is still a huge source of the student population, but we're equally proud to say that we have 11 British universities setting up in India now. I think that might mitigate some of the outflow of students, but these are British universities going to be operating in India as UK universities. So that's a really key differential that's going forward. To specifically answer your question, what are we doing? What we're doing is more about what I mentioned in the first stance, which is about fraud, financial documentation, ensuring that there is more scrutiny. But over the years, it's gotten better. But that's helpful because the student numbers have also gone up. But we've got a lot to look forward to with our university setting up in India. And thank you. I hope I sort of allayed some of your concerns. Yeah. Gentleman here in the blue shirt. Hi.
Myself, Shanmuga Bhuvaneshwar, founder of FinFresh. I'm running a fintech startup that serves personal finance management, taking behavioral science as a predominant factor on designing financial management.
Wow.
So I have 2 questions on setting up offices in UK.
Yep.
One is like the R&D tax credit is given only for the if the parent company is set up in UK, or is it even available if the parent company is in India and research happens at UK and development happens in India?
You couldn't have said it better than me. You couldn't have explained it better than me. Your parent company can sit anywhere in the world. Your wholly owned subsidiary or branch can be in the UK. You should have a registered entity in the UK, and then you're eligible for exactly as you explained for our R&D tax credits.
Okay. And the other one is like on setting up office and taking care of the expense and on the visa process, is there any minimum funding requirement that we require to start there?
You can start up your company in the UK with £1. We have no minimum capital requirement for you to set up your company.
So what about running office there? Is there any funding requirement like having certain pounds in our bank account while applying visa?
There are 2 things. So you've asked 2 questions. Let me just take the first part. As an individual, there are different categories for visas. So if you're applying for a category as an individual, then yes, there is a bank balance stipulation. And I don't think you're in the investor category, or you might be in the innovator category. But as a PhD, you can go to the UK. We have a free visa scheme. You don't need a job in the UK. The second part of your question is, do you need a certain bank balance for you to go and set up your company in the UK? You don't, because you will be part of the UK, but part of the Indian parent company, probably being on what we call an ICT, which is an intercompany transfer. So you will be going from your Indian company, parent company, to the UK entity. So you will come under the auspices of the parent company. And you as an individual will be an employee of the UK company on deputation or for a contract in the UK as part of the British entity. So you personally won't have that responsibility other than your salary, but the company will have an operating revenue and operating funds in the UK. And it is under that license that we call a sponsorship license, which is sort of the overarching license that the company would take for you to be moved from the Indian entity to the UK entity. So as far as I'm concerned, if your company wants to move you from your Indian entity to the UK entity, they've already done their background check on you. they've already done their financial compliance on you.
And I have two more questions. One is like, is there any mandatory requirement that we should recruit the locals there?
No?
No.
No.
Fine. And
No.
are there any other schemes or something specific for early stage startups that have
There
just?
are. There are. And I can take that offline with you. But when we say startups, we have the Global Entrepreneur Program, we have EIS, we have various schemes for companies, startups in universities, we have accelerator programs, and we have a regional program. So there are many funding pots, but as long as you're based in the UK, accessing them from here is different. But we can chat. Okay. Thank you.